If you've observed any field interviews conducted by Jay Leno or even Stephen Colbert, it shows how ignorant the average voter is on current affairs and the economics. When the populace votes for a candidate similar to the... Hello? How do we, when the populace votes for a candidate, okay, somehow we're going dead. Okay. This, similar to the American Idol, the uninformed voter.
Good. I'll repeat that just so that everybody can hear it. When we have what have been called low information voters, or those folks that you see clueless on jaywalking, how do we begin to work with them, win them over, and educate them? It's a great question, and I think it's really a problem. You know, I live in a place inside the Beltway where people live and breathe politics in terms of the horse race of politics, and that's a very sad thing. You know, the good part of a low information voter is that our system was not designed so that everybody would have to wake up and read roll call in the morning, right? In that sense, we don't want a nation of political consultants, but we need a nation of citizens. And what I think we have to do with our friends and neighbors and those that we've used this kind of strange label for is give them a reason for caring about politics. Right now they feel that government doesn't care about them, and they feel that big business doesn't care about them. And they feel like both parties care about the conclusion of big government and big business. And to a certain degree, they're right. And until we really take a serious look at things like crony capitalism and understand that a lot of this disenchantment, yes, a lot of it's blameworthy, but a lot of it is rooted in a sense that, you know, if you had social studies classes like exist now, you wouldn't care anything about government either. I mean, there's a lot of problems that go very far down, and until we begin to address those root causes, it's going to be very tough to think that we're going to somehow have, again, some outreach program that's going to suddenly enlighten everybody. So I think that getting involved, like in the naturalization courses that are offered, in programs like that, you know, that exam that is given to new immigrants such that they can become citizens, it's actually an okay exam. They ask things like, what are the 3 branches of government? People study it, and they take it, and they emerge from that having passed it with an extraordinary sense of pride. It's really a beautiful thing. I, a number of years ago, gave that exam to my Constitution class. I didn't tell them what they were taking. And then at the end, shamed them with you know, some of the easy ones that they should have gotten. I don't know, that's a hard one. I think that's an inadequate answer, but we'll go on to the next question.
Okay. How do conservatives overcome the Santa Claus arguments of the progressives?
Well, for one, don't be a kind of junior Santa Claus. It won't work. It never does. But that's what we've seen time after time after time. That the party of Lincoln supposes that they can play that game better than the other one. And they always lose out in that effort. So if you care about the Constitution and you're a conservative, I think that you have to recognize this dilemma. That right now the main problem of welfare in this country is not the underclass. It is the middle class. It is people who are even fairly well off. For example, Congress right now is debating a measure as to whether the Stafford loan should go from 3.4% to 6.8%. Now when it's at 3.4%, any of you out there, whether your kid qualifies for or grandchild or somebody that you know, or you qualify for a Stafford loan at 3.4%, even if you're very well off, you're going to take that, right? You can't get that kind of a loan at a commercial bank. And so we have a lot of Americans right now that are on the dole, that are taking money, and that are then turning around and saying this is a very bad idea and we're bankrupting our country. The Weekly Standard had a cover story a few weeks ago. I thought it was very incisive. It said, our debt problem, being $16 trillion south of broke, is not a problem of our grandchildren and children. It's our problem. The ramifications very well could be felt today. So a lot of the takers are taking for the same reason that the governors that claim to be conservative continue to take. And that is, it's there. If we don't take it, somebody else will, so we might as well do it. So until more of us stand up and say, we can't operate in that way anymore, it's not going to change.
Okay. Why not just have a revolution and write a new constitution?
For one, we don't need a new constitution. The old one is working if it were to be tried and to be followed. Two, I think, and this goes to a very serious point, and I think having been very much involved with and I've spoken to many Tea Party groups across the country and have appreciated so much of what has been done there, we have to be very careful not to use the term revolution lightly. It is a grave and serious matter. And I know all of you know that, but this is the thing that the Declaration says. It is a right and it's a duty. But right now, we do not have foreclosed to us political involvement. The wheels and levers and machinations of power are certainly arrayed against outsiders, but they are not so arrayed that it's impossible to make a difference. It just takes enormous hard work. And until we have every outlet and a long train of abuses, right? That was the qualifications that Jefferson and the Declaration set out. And while we have those kind of marauding, what's the metaphor that the Declaration uses, the swarms of bureaucrats, right? There's certain complaints there that resonate with us today, but we're not yet in a place where we need to have a revolution. What we need to do is have a return to the Constitution.
Could you delineate between inalienable rights, just plain rights, and privileges?
It's an excellent question. It's one of those jaywalking points that utterly baffles people. To have an inalienable right means that it is inherent in you as a human being. That is, that your human beingness is inseparable from those rights. For James Madison, for example, he put it this way in a brilliant little piece called Property. Think of what property is. He said, the dictionary definition is your stuff, your material possessions. In fact, what's most important when you think of property is your immaterial possessions. The most precious property you own are your rights. The most precious right you have is your right to conscience. It is quite literally and should remain untouchable by the government. George Washington said that conscience is that little spark of celestial fire. That means that it's something that is informed by something greater than us. So a right that is inalienable is inseparable. Government is not the source of rights, its purpose is to protect our rights. That's that second category then in the question, right? Civil rights. Civil rights are rights that you have as a citizen. I can't go to Canada and claim the right to vote. I'm not Canadian, right? So the sense of rights there are rights that you enjoy by nature of your being a citizen, but that's different than a natural right. A privilege is something like getting an education. Today we talk about education as a right. That's kind of a logical non-starter though, because you have to be ready and willing and able to receive an education. You can't just claim it as a right. It's not something that works that way. Also, when FDR proclaimed the Second Bill of Rights in 1944, he said, what we need to do is think about the rights to life and liberty as, well, he's put it this way. They were our rights to life and liberty, he said, of the rights in the Bill of Rights, the original Bill of Rights. The Wall Street Journal called him on that the next day, and they said, in a very short op-ed, are, A-R-E, Mr. President, not were. But what FDR did in that listing of the second economic Bill of Rights was suggest that we have the right to a home, a job, health care, Sound familiar? That's the list that exists today. But if I have the right to a home, who has the duty to pay for it? So that's the kind of quick version, I guess, on that question.
What is the definition in the Constitution? High crimes.
Unsettled. It's one of those things that there was no kind of standard, though there were lots of ideas put forward. But I think that throughout our history of impeachment, we've struggled to come up with a univocal meaning to that term. It does have to rise to a very, very high level. If transgressing the Constitution was a high crime, Washington, D.C. would empty out pretty quickly.
California governing has increasingly been done by regional entities that supersede counties, set standards, distribute money in local governments, cities, and that what is the constitutional protection against such things?
The constitutional protection is in the structure itself, and this is what's hard. Nowhere does it say in the Constitution, these kind of new governmental entities, these metropolitan or call them what you will, they exist now in a lot of places. Portland got it going. A lot of other places, including the Bay Area, are giving new momentum to this thing. The structure of the Constitution itself is the source of our liberty, and that's a hard thing to wrap our minds around, because it's a lot easier to think that your rights come from a particular list. That's why Madison originally opposed the Bill of Rights, because he said if we make a list and we leave one out, won't that convey to people then that they don't have that right? And furthermore, if you make a list, doesn't that convey to them that the government is the source of their rights? Good points, right? He came around to support the Bill of Rights because ultimately it was the way in which the Constitution was going to be ratified successfully. But he was always worried about that point. So the structure of government is such that there is dual federalism. You have federalism, you have power accorded to the national government. It has to be very powerful, I mean, the government has to be powerful to do the things that it's charged with doing well. Right now it tries to do everything, and it does nothing well. But dual federalism also empowers the states. And rather than talking about states' rights, I think you're better off talking about state powers. And we have in this country better constituted our states than with counties and municipalities. And you run afoul of a lot of state constitutions, I think, with these and the federal Constitution's design with these kind of new entities.
Here with things like Benghazi, Fast and Furious, do you feel that Barack Obama should be impeached?
Now we get to the easy questions.
Let's get warmed up.
No, I don't. I think that the basic fault of Benghazi, and we had General Jack Keane. Unfortunately, this is the one video in the last couple of years that we don't have up and can't have up on our website. But General Jack Keane, retired 4-star general, broke down Benghazi in a brilliant way. And what he said is that you had 9 people, best as he can tell. 9 people set to guard that entire area, the area of 4 football fields. 5 of them would have been stationed at the area where you're letting cars in and out. The president has not been called to account on Benghazi because Congress has not called him onto account. So if you could mount the effort to impeach, then if you could muster that, you would have been able to muster the members of your Congress to ask the right questions in the hearings, and to spend a lot of time on those hearings, and to stop doing anything else like renaming post offices until they got answers on those hearings. So the fault, again, is not going to be solved by removing. I don't think that those, the fault lies in ourselves in many ways.
Okay. Some suggest our Constitution enables the two-party system, which has in recent years become dysfunctional. Would you object to a change to a parliamentary system which would encourage participation in more than 2 parties?
Yes. I don't think that a parliamentary form of government, I mean, you know the joke about the Italian Constitution. You can file it in the periodical section. There's a problem with parliamentary form of government, but in fact, that's what the progressives were after. They wanted a much more, this was what Woodrow Wilson's academic work pertained to. You can find a lot about it in our Constitution Reader, also in the work of many of our political scientists on faculty, including R.J. Pistrito. The problematic nature of parliamentary government really wouldn't solve any of the problems that we have now. And furthermore, if you want to start a third party, you can do so. It's true that the structure of our Constitution does militate against its success. I'm a native Minnesotan. I saw what happened when we tried for tripartisanship with Governor Jesse the Mind Ventura. You know, he was Jesse the Body as a professional wrestler. So it's true, the question is based upon a true premise, but the problems attendant to two-party rule will not be solved by a parliamentary form of government. You know, there's a very interesting thing, and I'll close on this note, that was at work with the dissolution of the Whig Party. The Republican Party was founded about 45 minutes outside of Hillsdale, Michigan. Jackson, Michigan is the place, the city. There were a couple of other places like Ripon, Wisconsin, and a few other places that properly claimed to be the birthplace of the Republican Party. It was a process that happened organically as the Whigs became more and more ineffective and the Democratic Party more and more beholden to the Southern slave interests. Those who cared about the plight of Black Americans and those who were enslaved said, we are going to start a new party. You can print the platform that was crafted in large measure by two Hillsdalians of the Republican Party, the original platform, on a couple of pieces of paper, because it's so simply stated. And it states that what they're going after are the twin evils of barbarism, one of which is slavery. They started a new party. Abraham Lincoln joined it a couple of years later, and that party, of course, still exists today. So reviving and pointing back to principles can really rally people in ways that are very powerful if done well. Thanks very much for having me.
Thank you all for coming.